Here's how to control conflict in the workplace. Remember, as humans, conflict will always be with us, but growth and success can come out of honest conflict. In project management terms, this is actually called organized disagreement. Whether it's in a professional relationship or a personal relationship, successful supervisors view conflict as inevitable, but solvable. Here are 4 suggestions to listen for during this segment. Number 1, what do you do when an employee sets you up publicly or tries to embarrass you? Number 2, how to handle employees who complain about working conditions or workload. Number 3, how to handle an employee conflict without escalating the problem. And number 4, how to avoid conditions that cause conflict. Let's begin with how to save face when an employee sets you up or publicly tries to embarrass you. Oftentimes there are 2 different types. There are bullies and there are backstabbers. Bullies. When a bully is aggressive and intense, oftentimes the behavior they display is in your face. They're louder. They might even start to call names or swear. Now there's a couple of techniques you can use. The first one is definitely stay calm and disagree without arguing. Now realize as you're staying calm, you must, at times, match and mirror the intensity without yelling at the person. Because when a person who is a bully is in your face, if you are just calm and you say, we need to look at this, they're not going to hear you. So if someone's dialed up and they're in your face, a technique you can use is to match and mirror briefly, then lead to de-escalation. And here's what it might look like. The bully's in your face, they're calling you names, and you're like, hey, wait a second, hold on a minute, please. Let's discuss this in a calm manner. Now you notice I'm sounding intense, but I'm not sounding weak, and I am definitely not being aggressive. Be assertive, match and mirror, lead by example, and de-escalate. Solicit the other person's point of view, and I want to caution you here, not while they are belligerent. I had a boss who once told me you cannot be rational with irrational people. And this is a scientific truth. They are no longer in the right state of mind. They're not in their rational, reasonable part of their brain. They are in the primitive, prehistoric, fight or flight part of their brain. And so if you're going to rationalize with that person, it is after you've set a boundary with them. Say, hey, hold on a minute, please. Let's dial this down a little bit. Let's talk about this rationally. Notice I sound like I'm getting irritated? I'm not. Match and mirror, lead by example. Take the initiative to discuss this. You may introduce that with, wait, hang on a second here. I can see you're really dialed up about this. Please, I want to hear what you have to say. Tell me what's the issue. Is it to do with a person? Is it a project? What's going on here? Again, I'm sounding intense, yet you notice I'm calm. Yet if I was talking this way to them, they wouldn't hear it. Don't allow interruptions. When they start escalating again, notice I keep going to that, hold on a minute, wait. Couple of things you're doing here. This is a sign of authority in communication. This is not just a sign for stop. This is a sign of I surrender. I'm unarmed. Yet when you're hitting that primitive, prehistoric part of their brain, on a fight or flight scale, you're showing I'm big, back off. So if they are in that irrational part of their brain, you can capture their attention. The other type of people who will undermine your authority are oftentimes backstabbers or snipers. The backstabbers, they'll be really nice to you in front of your face, and then they go behind your back and they say or do things completely contradictory. Spotlight them. Call them out on their behavior. Ask them. Now, if it is in a public setting and it's a sniper in a group, you know, the person who hides behind somebody else and shoots a remark at you, single them out. Look at them and say, excuse me, say their name. Not a name, say their name. Did I just hear you say this? Or better yet, if you don't want to repeat what they said, look at them and say, could you please repeat what you just said? Now, you can also take a poll of the group here. Sometimes there's a sniper in the audience who wants to capture your attention. And so they're not shooting at you, they're just shooting on behalf of the group because nobody else has the courage to speak up. Now, I want to caution you with this one. We don't want to use this technique to encourage this behavior. Yet, if it's across the board within the group, you might need to listen. Now, how do you handle an employee who undermines you? Recognize it for what it is. This is the challenge to your authority. Remember to remind them their input is important. Not, though, when it comes to accomplishing the job at hand or meeting the requirements of the job. Deal with it quickly. Other people are watching you. They want to know how you're going to handle it. They want to see, are you going to stand up to this or are you going to cave into it? Make sure you stand up. Otherwise, people will walk all over you. Allow for an explanation. Allow. Consider what the person is saying. Remember, people will do the what if they understand the why, and if they don't have buy-in to why you're asking them to do something, they'll argue with you. They'll fight. They'll undermine you. Allow for an explanation. Lay the ground rules of healthy explanation, and that is state the issue, state the facts, state what they'd like to see improved, rather than name-calling, attacking, or being general and blaming. Consider the validity of their statement. Give some time for what they've said to breathe. You may need to have a couple of meetings about this. State the why behind the what. End the arguing in the final decision. Remember, there are aspects of all of our jobs that we don't like to do. The bottom line is, this is the job requirement. Are you willing to accept the responsibility? And that is the question you ask of the employee. What do you do if the employee complains about working conditions? Well, pay attention to the specifics of the complaint. Is it minor? Then fix it. Is it major? Legal, moral, ethical, safe? Contact HR and the legal department. What to do when facing employee-to-employee conflict head-on? What do you do when the conflict is between two or more employees? Well, first of all, talk with the parties involved. If there's two of them, talk with them both together. Because remember, if you hear one side of the story first, usually the first side we hear from a person, especially if we like them, we tend to gain a little bias towards them. Describe the problem in behavioral terms. Now, you might find yourself being a referee or a mediator here. You might say, wait, time out, hold on, what's the behavior? Hold on, we're not calling names, we're saying respectful names to each other. Is the issue at hand on the table? Write down your own concerns also. Be observant of the behaviors you're seeing displayed, and define a specific incident or two that you've seen where they both could improve. Relate the impact and your feelings. Let them know how it impacts you, how it impacts the team, and work out a win-win change situation. Remember to use SMART goals here. Ask each person, what will they do to fix the problem? And if they don't meet the expectations, remember, you're the referee, you have the final say, and you state what the objectives are and what's required of each employee for future conflict. Remember, there are also some common causes for conflict, including competition for limited resources, differences in values and goals. Remember the illustration I mentioned earlier about the car company whose goal was time, yet they told the employees the goal was quality. Make sure also it could be a difference in problem-solving styles. Some people are vocal, they want to express, they want to talk it out loud. Some people have things in writing. Some people are bottom line, to the point, and some people just want to get along. Realize there are different ways people express conflict. Encourage the styles with respect. Remember, there are also some other common causes for conflict, including rivalries. Let's take Susie, who is supervising PJ, and perhaps PJ was overlooked for the position that Susie got into. And she might ask PJ for help on a project, and he might look at her and say, "You're the supervisor, you tell me." Deal with it for what it is. It is a rivalry and it is not acceptable in the workplace. And then also realize other causes for conflict include pressure. That whole concept of having too much work. A person might just need to take a few more breaks or lighten their workload. For our last section here, we're going to talk about keeping complaints from escalating by taking complaints seriously. If somebody has the courage to deliver you a complaint, please take it seriously. Hear out the employee and get all sides of the story. Be fair and explain the reasons for your decisions. During this segment, you learned what to do when an employee sets you up or publicly tries to embarrass you. You also learned how to handle employees who complain about working conditions or workload, and how to handle employee conflict without escalating the problem, as well as how to avoid conditions that cause conflict. To be an effective supervisor, you must step up to the plate by learning first how to manage yourself. Use this session to learn strategies and techniques for managing yourself as well as those around you. In this next section, we will cover Supervisor, Manage Thyself.